The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Bill, hi. It's a pleasure to have you back, because the last time we talked was June 2022, and now we're in sunny Batumi, even though the weather is not so sunny today.
Right. But no, it is my pleasure, it's my delight to be back, and it's great to be here in Batumi, a really interesting town.
Yep. So, given that we talked the last time in June of last year, I want to begin our interview with summation of whatever has happened in the Georgian startup ecosystem since then, basically during the last year. So, what trends could you summarize? What could you highlight from the last year?
Yeah. So, last year we were barely coming out of COVID. So it was a sort of dynamic time and uncertain time, for a combination of reasons, right? So now, we're pretty much, COVID is behind us. It's still sort of there, but what I'm seeing now is just a surge of energy in Georgia. Thank God COVID is over. It looks as though, Georgia and the world are sort of reconnecting again, which was a real problem, right? The limitation of travel. And so one of the things that's really interesting that I'm noticing in this visit is the original story of Georgia that I heard was Georgia has historically been a crossroads for the world across history, right? And so now I kind of feel that. And so here in Batumi, I'm sensing just a lot of people just at this conference here in the city this week from all over the place. And so, when I was in Tbilisi last year, it was pretty much everybody was Georgians, right? And so now, we've got an interesting mix of people from Europe, from the United States, from Asia, from all over the world here in Batumi. And so I think that's a really important part for every innovation ecosystem is to plug in to the rest of the world and to get that cross-fertilization that comes when people travel, when people visit, when people connect.
Bill, let's talk about the purpose of your current visit. We're here in Batumi within the Georgian Startup Competition and also the Startup World Cup, which Pegasus Tech Ventures is hosting here. How important are such events for developing of any startup ecosystem, in this case, the Georgian one?
Yeah, it's extremely important in every innovation ecosystem to have these events that convene all of the players in the ecosystem. So you want to get, the supporting government players. We have them here today. The city of Batumi, UNDP, USAID, JITA, as well as the corporate players. TBC is here, supporting this event. And then obviously all the entrepreneurs. And so I've met here in, just today, so many different entrepreneurs who are part of this ecosystem who came to listen, to learn, to connect, to network. And so that is unbelievably valuable because ultimately one of the things that we've learned is that successful entrepreneurs are relentless networkers. And so, in order to be successful, you've got to connect with people. So those people who might become your customers, they might become your investors, they might become part of your team, they might become partners in some way, but it's all about connecting with people. And so it's really hard, again, back to COVID, or any situation where you're stovepiped, it's really hard to connect to people without events like this. So it's so good that we're back live together again and connecting. So it was just so interesting during the lunch break. I don't know if you were there. I was a little worried. It was an hour-and-a-half lunch break, and it takes about 10, 15 minutes to eat, right? But people were networking ferociously, and it was so good to see that energy, that excitement about connecting with people and finding out is this a potential partner, a potential employee, potential customer, potential investor? That kind of energy, I think, is critical to any ecosystem. So, God bless all of the supporters of this event and, the city of Batumi for hosting it.
Let's talk about the Startup World Cup. How did it came about and how did you end up in Georgia? Please tell me all about it.
Yeah, sure. So 8 years ago now, at Pegasus Tech Ventures, we thought it would be a really interesting idea to take sort of a page out of, borrow some other models out there and create a global startup pitch competition. So Pegasus is a global venture capital firm, and our mandate is to find the best companies anywhere on the planet that meet certain strategic investment opportunities or profiles for our corporate network. So we have a network of over 40 multinational corporations that are part of the Pegasus family. And they've told us we have to find emerging technologies that are of strategic value to us or potentially disruptive to our sectors or potentially competitive to us to make sure that we stay ahead of the game. So we're thinking, okay, how do we plug in to all of these innovation ecosystems all over the planet? Let's create a startup pitch competition. And in each innovation hub, what we do is we find a partner who knows the community, who can convene all of the stakeholders. We want to get the best entrepreneurs. We also want to get the best investors. We want to get support from the corporate community. We want to get support from the academic community and support from any government or NGO players who are part of that community. So we use it as an excuse to convene all of these stakeholders. That gets us plugged into these ecosystems. So not just the entrepreneurs, but also the investors and everyone else. So if anything bubbles up that is going to be relevant to Pegasus or to any of our corporate partners, we want to hear about it. So now we do that. It's partly and significantly also sort of us giving back. We use it as an opportunity to connect these ecosystems with Silicon Valley and to share some of the learnings that we've had in Silicon Valley. I, many years as an entrepreneur and as an investor, have the opportunity to share with entrepreneurs here all the things that I've learned, plus other learnings from Silicon Valley, to give back, to celebrate entrepreneurship, to celebrate innovation, to create these networks and strengthen the networks in each innovation hub, to publicize, through the media, and then to connect to Silicon Valley. So that was the big idea. And it was a big undertaking. We decided in order to have a big impact, we were going to offer the biggest prize ever offered in a startup competition. And so we said, okay, $1 million grand prize for the winner of the global competition. That was the big idea. Well, that struck a chord, That actually got people's interest. So we partner in every city with the right partners, and now we started the first year, I think we had 15 cities. Now this year we're going to do close to 60 around the world. And so, cumulatively, I think we're at over 90 cities that we've had Startup World Cup competitions in. So pretty much every hub you can think of around the world, 6 continents. We haven't done Antarctica yet, so we'll see if we get there. But it's been unbelievably energizing for us, as well as we hope for all of the communities where we do it. So Georgia, through some, other connections that I had historically, we connected first with Gita, and that was what our first connection was with. And then Through GIDA, got connected to Startup Grind. Through Startup Grind, got connected to this team of people who helped us put together a Startup World Cup here in Georgia. So this is, I think, the third time. I think it's the third time we've done a Startup World Cup competition here in Georgia. The second time in Batumi. So it's just very interesting how Batumi is spinning up as an innovation hub here in Georgia.
All right, Bill, let's talk about Pegasus Tech Ventures. Do you have any particular investment strategy, or your portfolio is more or less diversified?
So Pegasus is a $2 billion plus venture capital firm. And as I was saying, we are global in terms of our span of coverage. Our headquarters office is in Silicon Valley, but we have offices around the world, in Tokyo, in Southeast Asia, in South Asia, in Israel, in Europe. We have presence to try to reach as many ecosystems as we can. But the Pegasus model is very different as a venture capital model. So traditional venture capital, you pool money into one fund and invest out of that fund. And generally that fund has an investment thesis of some sort. Sometimes it's narrow, sometimes it's broad. So Pegasus is different. What Pegasus has done, what we've done is we connect with multinational corporations who have an innovation strategy and an innovation need. And with each one of those multinational corporations, we sit down and we identify strategic requirements, strategic opportunities, strategic goals for their innovation, which will give us a mandate of technologies and sectors and geographies and stages that they are most interested in. And so across this 40 corporations, we've got incredibly broad mandates. But what we do is we've set up separate funds for each one of them. So actually right now, I think we have 39 separate funds. So it gives us incredible reach and depth across pretty much any sector you can imagine. So some of the sectors overlap. So there's relatively broad overlap across the corporate world in terms of things like enterprise software, AI, smart manufacturing, robotic process automation, RPA, which is business process automation opportunities, and then we have some industrial-oriented companies that are doing, basic industry, oil and gas, and chemicals, and mining. Some of our corporations, sort of in that space. Other material science, they're doing, advanced chemicals, coating materials, that sort of thing. Life science companies doing life sciences from molecules and genomics to, health tech, healthcare, products and services and devices, IoT, remote patient monitoring, trying to transform and support healthcare across the world. And then, the more traditional IT, computing, software, hardware. We've invested in chip companies, in semiconductor technology companies. We've invested in quantum computing companies. We're one of the most prolific investors in quantum computing. We've invested in space tech. So it's hard to think of a sector we're not investing in. We do some gaming, we do some consumer, we do some commerce. So yeah, it's hard to think of a sector we don't invest in. But our investment criteria are pretty specific around finding, an emerging technology company that has the potential to collaborate with one or more of our corporate partners to the benefit of both. And so we have very much this sort of win-win-win model where we find emerging technologies that fit a strategic innovation requirement for one of our corporate partners. We come in, invest in the startup company, bridge the collaboration, and hopefully all three of us win as a result of that model.
Have you invested in any Georgian startups yet?
We have not invested in Georgia yet. Can you believe it? No, I am. I'm hoping we'll get there. We've talked to several of the companies as potential. investment opportunities, we looked pretty deeply at a few companies. I really want to get into the details. But no, we have not invested in a Georgian company yet. You know, hopefully sometime soon we'll get there.
Bill, I want to finish our interview with you giving some advice to the future startup people, startup founders, you know, people interested in doing startups, you know. Based on your experience from Silicon Valley, you know, you have experience in entrepreneurship and business, in failure, in success, you know, everything. So what is the most important thing when a person wants to start a startup?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many most important things, okay? You know, but let me just actually hit two of them that I think intersect importantly. One of the most important things is to understand that entrepreneurship and startup companies is a team sport. It's a team sport. And so it's really important for founders to come together and structure the relationships in the organization in a team structure and recruit teammates. So you don't recruit subordinates, you don't recruit worker bees, you don't recruit serfs, right? You recruit teammates. And so that's sometimes hard for some entrepreneurs to unlock their ego and appreciate the importance of building a team. I mean, it seems obvious, but it's just, you know, people are tough, right? Okay. So that's sort of this overlay on sort of the social, sort of organizational behavior aspect of entrepreneurship. The business aspect of entrepreneurship, that is my most important sort of advice and lesson to entrepreneurs, is to always focus on what is your compelling value proposition to customers. And so a lot of entrepreneurs get really down in the weeds on their product. So a lot of startup companies we meet are product focused. And that seems like that should make sense, right? Because that's how we make money, is selling product, right? Well, no. I learned very early on in my career, a just wonderful guy who was an early mentor of mine said to me, "Bill, customers don't buy products." And I said, how can you build a business if customers don't buy products? He said, "You don't get it, Bill. Customers don't buy products. Customers buy benefits." And too many entrepreneurs lose the forest for the trees, for the product, right? They're product focused and they lose the point. And the point is you have to deliver a compelling benefit to your target customers. That's the only way to get sales. It's the only way to scale. And so just keep making sure that you focus on your customers and the compelling benefit you're delivering to customers.
Thank you very much, Bill. That's the perfect point to finish the interview. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Great pleasure talking with you. Thank you very much, and delightful to be back here in Georgia.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.